Okay, so just a couple quick reminders, right? That next time you don't need to bring writing analytically with you, right? That's not what the reading is in for next time. The next reading is in this book. It's in Reading the World. You're going to be reading the excerpts from the Analects of Confucius, right? I have some guide questions up here on the board. These are things you should be tracking as you are reading. There are also some reading questions at the end of the selection in the book. Those will also help you kind of focus on what some of the important themes are in the text. But these are the things that I want to discuss specifically in class on Thursday. So I'll give people a minute to take this down, and then we'll start in with what we're going to do today. I also want to remind everybody that while there isn't a writing assignment for Thursday, I do want you to submit at least 3 words that you had to look up with their definitions to the vocab folder in Georgia View, right? So 3 words you had to look up in the Analects with definitions. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
So what we read that's in the Reading of the World book is just called that?
Yes, it's that. Yeah, it's that essay in the Reading the World book.
Okay.
Yep. And when you're done taking the questions down, I don't know, just put your pencil down and look up or something.
How do we submit those 3 words? Is there like a vocabulary?
Yeah, there's a folder. It's the only folder that's always open.
Okay. So just find the open folder.
Yep, just find the open folder. It's labeled vocabulary words, and and you can submit as many. You'll just keep submitting to the same folder, and you'll keep accumulating more points as you keep submitting.
And then when we go to submit this assignment, we just answer those questions.
No, there isn't a specific assignment. Like, there's no specific writing assignment for this. At least
This
not.
is just what we're doing
not
as
yet.
we're reading.
Yeah, this is what you're doing as you're reading, right? So keep these questions next to you while you're reading. And the other thing I would recommend everybody do, right? I'm going to show you what my text looks like here. Okay, what is it? What do you notice I've done all over this?
Written.
Yeah, I've written physically on the book, right? In the I've written questions for myself. I've written notes in the margins. What I feel to be important points, right? This is the best way to actually get something out of what you're reading. Now, if you're renting the book, if you don't own it, you can do this in pencil, or you can do it with sticky notes. But I highly recommend actually writing in the book itself if you can, because then you can tell what you were thinking where, right? I can see from even different different kinds of pen, right? Like conversations I've had with myself over time about this, right? So it's a good way to connect your thinking directly to the text and to actually track some of these themes throughout the reading. So does anybody have other questions? I'll give you all a minute to finish this up, and then we'll get started.
you just take a picture of that?
No.
There's.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to be a dick about this. Yeah, it's like I want you to write it out because then you'll think about it more than you would if you took a picture.
I was just trying to keep you waiting on me.
Okay, so those who have taken down the questions, because I get that not everybody writes and processes at quite the same speed, right? Totally fine. I want you to actually start writing on a different topic. I want you to take some time and, to the best of your ability, explain what is the purpose of education, right? What do you think the purpose of education is? And a couple of caveats here, right? One, keep writing until I tell you to stop. Two, don't cop out, right? I want to know what you think. And three, what was the third thing? Oh, be prepared to read it to the rest of the class. Right? Everybody is going to have to do that.
So start now.
Yep, if you're done taking other questions, go ahead and start now. Take 2 more minutes. Oh, and don't put your names on these.
Are we handing this one to you?
Well, yes and no, but yeah, don't put your name on it. Okay, time's up. So what I'd like you to do now, some of you have already done this, is tear out the sheet and pass it up. Thank you. So, because I know that some of us get embarrassed about reading our own work out loud, what I'm going to do is shuffle these up. I'm going to give your sheet to somebody else, and someone else will read what you wrote, right? So that way nobody will know what anyone else's piece said, okay? If you happen to get your own writing, well, you're the only one who knows it, right? Now, the other thing I'm going to say too is that I noticed that some of you wrote this on the back of other notes. So just listen for who's reading your piece and just ask for it back. Okay. Well, that's always a risk, isn't it? Okay, so let's start at the back end of the room there. Ron, can you read for us, please?
Education's purpose is to remind people of the past so that we may learn. It is also to give us knowledge in order to succeed. Education starts at a young age while a child's brain is still developing and continues throughout your entire life. You learn something new every day. To some, their education is not important and they don't try. But for others, education is everything and gets them to succeed and to their dream. Dreams like being doctors, lawyers, teachers, scientists, engineers, mechanics, and so much more, instead of doing the least you could and sometimes struggling to find a job to support. Education is more often than not a key to a successful future. Sometimes education can even be fun and you can find some really interesting stuff. Education's purpose is to enlighten and learn.
All right, thank you, Ron. James, can you read for us, please?
Okay. One purpose of education is efficiency. If everyone is taught the same basic things, then society can function at a higher level. Another purpose of education, especially English and history, is empathy. Being empathetic makes you and society better. Being able to understand someone else's life and background makes you a more charismatic and likable person. Another purpose of education is socialization. Sending children to school teaches them how to interact with other people and introduces them to people their own age and people who may share common interests. And another purpose of education is self-fulfillment. Learning about what interests you and then obtaining a job in that field is good for society and yourself. Passion is important when it comes to careers and prevents you from becoming bored in your career.
Okay, thank you. Haley.
Mine says the purpose of education is to help us learn and become something or somebody in society. The purpose of education is to have individuals to be an asset to society.
Okay. All right, good. Asia.
Education is a form of socialization to make sure people know what they need to know to become successful as an adult. If we didn't have a way for people to become educated, then most people would just have manual labor jobs that don't require much thought and knowledge. Education also sets for future generations with higher minds so that we can make more technological.
Okay.
It would be hard to advance if nobody knew what previous mind knew and learning about their history at an earlier age opens more doors for. I don't know that word.
You having trouble with the handwriting? Okay. Advancement.
Okay, advancement, giving that then more time to study.
Okay. Good. So as we're listening to these, right, we're hearing some repeat themes emerging, right? So what I'm putting up on the board here is typically only like when I hear something new that hasn't been mentioned before, right? So let's see, who hasn't read something yet? Yoan.
Education can be interpreted in two ways. The validation or physical proof of education, such as a degree or certificate in a specific field,
Okay.
or the actual act of learning the skill mentally. They both are important in their own way. The purpose of educational validation is a way to create opportunities for people to work in a specific field of interest. To become a doctor, you must seek educational validation in the form of doctorate or PhD. And while the doctor can obtain his degree to be used to get his job, he can't use it to become a technical engineer. Education may also be interpreted as the act of learning. The purpose of learning is to not become stationary. We, as humans, have natural curiosity that head us to seek education. The purpose of education we seek is to fulfill our own needs to have use in the society further.
All right, great, thank you. All right, Chris.
What is the purpose of education? I believe the purpose of education is to educate young people on different topics that will help turn them in the future, depending on what you choose to do in the future, you will need to know certain things. I feel some people have different ways of giving the education that people need, which can make it difficult with receiving or obtaining. I do believe education is very important. Without it, no one would know really anything or how to do anything, which would make life extremely hard, like there is no point. Education, I feel, has good intentions, obviously, but can cause lots of stress and anxiety when it comes to obtaining it.
Okay. That's interesting. Stressful. Brandon.
An education is something you earn from your peers and teachers. You start learning at the age of 2 and 3 years old. There are a lot of stages in education as you become older, and education is very important to me because of the career dreams I have. I had to come to school and get my education and begin living my future. Education is a very popular word in the 21st century. Once you get in the middle of school, you should be thinking about what your future might need to become that.
All right, thank you. And I think, Sydney, you're the only one who hasn't read yet, right? All right, go ahead.
What is the purpose of education? To me, it is to give us basic knowledge to be a valuable member of the American society, but that is just grade school. We have the choice to either go into workforce or further our education in college. As a man, I think about which path is going to provide the best way to provide for a family. That is why I chose college, to better prepare me for a good career instead of having a low-paying job. Now, I do know people have friends even that did not choose college, but instead started their own businesses, making a lot of money, getting provided with a family business to go into, making good money, or having to work 80+ hours a week in factories, plants, or on a farm just to get by. I chose this path in college so that I will have more career security and a higher salary over the ones only having a high school diploma. That's what education is to me, preparing us for the world we are starting our lives.
Okay. Thank you. So what we've just done here, just to kind of like pause and explain what's going on, is an exercise that's called free writing. So this is something that the textbook talks about, but free writing is essentially setting yourself a time limit to just sit and write whatever comes into your head about a particular problem, right? So say you are trying to pull out the implications of a particular block of text you're reading, right? You can just sit with that block of text in front of you and just try to write, and the act of writing itself will help the ideas to flow, right? How many of you found that you ended up being surprised by something that you wrote? A couple nods, yeah, okay, like what? How many of you felt like the fact that you had to keep writing for a specific time helped you find more things to say? Yeah, and free writing isn't supposed to be particularly organized, right? You're just getting thoughts down on paper. And then once you've got those thoughts down on paper, then you can try to sort them into something more like a draft, right? But it's a really good way to kind of get your brain moving in order to do more complex writing afterwards, right? So what I'd like to try to do with this now is pick out some of the things that we've all said here, right? And I want you to try to group, take a couple minutes and try to group them into categories, right? And explain to me the logic of the category that you've chosen. See if you can create categories that cover pretty much everything that we've got up here, right?
that specific training?
Specific training, yes, that's what that says. Yep. So to help you along here, some of you may have actually already noticed something like this, but let me just show you like a binary that I notice here in everything that you all have written, right? That there's a clear difference between internally focused goals and externally focused goals. All right. Yeah, so okay, so what might we put in internally focused goals?
I put money and like a higher salary.
Is that an internal or an external goal?
And internal because it's for you.
Okay. See, I was actually going to put it in the external goal because it's something motivated. You're motivated by something other than the pursuit of knowledge itself. Yeah. But I can see what you mean. Or something like, say, self-fulfillment and enlightenment.
That's the next
Yeah.
I put self-fulfillment. And then I put stressful. Yeah, and enlightenment.
Yeah, stressful is kind of hard to fit, I think, with a lot of these other things. It's not really a purpose or a goal. It's just kind of something that education can be, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't have to follow my scheme here, even agree with where I'm putting things, right? I'm just kind of giving you an example of what to do here.
What about fun? Where would you put fun?
Well, fun is kind of a feeling that you have, right? You feel that something you're doing is fun, right? When we're doing something because it's fun, we're doing it for no reason other than our own satisfaction, right? So where would you think that would go?
Internal goal.
Yeah. And again, like, you get the idea, right? So yeah, just take a couple more minutes and see what y'all can do with this. And you can just go ahead and speak up when you think you have a category you want to share.
I somewhat do, but I'm still like on the fence about it.
Okay.
And I put like what education is, or I put like the lifelong process with professional goals, the future focused, and success opportunities as like its own category.
Okay.
And then like what education helps with, which is also where I put professional goals as like kind of shares, and then the
Okay.
money and higher salary, that kind of thing. That's the angle I went at.
Okay.
I have one that I labeled social advancement,
Okay. Go ahead.
socialization, social good, technological progress, efficiency, learning from past, and future focus.
Okay. So there's this kind of theme of like moving forward in all of those. And I think, yeah, you can even probably take future focus there as the label of the category, right? That's all about like making life better for yourself or others in the future, right? Okay, good. What else you got? It's okay if you got nothing else yet. Just sit back and think. Remember that writing helps, scribbling out ideas helps. Yeah, Brandon.
You do like self-educational progress and then like society's educational progress.
Okay, self versus society. Okay, yeah.
So like for self, it would be self-fulfillment, knowledge, success,
Mhm.
lifelong progress, empathy,
Uh-huh.
and certification, curiosity,
Okay.
and money. And then
Sure.
for society, you would put pretty much the rest because they're more focused on like whenever you leave, like you still have like a basis for new people to learn.
Okay,
Learn
yeah.
from what you did so that they can have a new future. It's not the same as yours.
Yeah, so kind of like self versus society, private versus public. Yeah, okay, good. So the basic reason why you would do this, right? The reason why you would try to come up with these categories to organize your thoughts is because doing that can help you notice a particular theme you might not have picked up on before that you might then be able to build an argumentative paper around, right? So, for example, before we created a category for it, James, were you thinking of education as a particularly future-focused thing? That's kind of like the direction in which we tend to move all of it? Yeah, essentially, you're placing a bet on the future, right? So you could use that as the basis for a thesis, right? About how our educational system works or what the goals of our educational system ought to be, right? So what I'd like you to take a minute to think about now is, I know that everybody here has a declared major, right? You're all, I think they pretty much make you declare one more or less right away these days. They actually didn't, when I was in school, they didn't let us declare majors until we were sophomores. But that was in the old days. So what I'd like y'all to think about, right, is this. Right. If money and social status didn't matter, what would you study or pursue? And why? Right? What appeals to you about that?
Do you want us writing down these answers?
Yep.
Okay.
And let's take, like, 12 minutes is a good round number, so we'll do another 12 minutes on this. 12 minutes is usually a good limit to set yourself when you're rewriting.
And this is talking about us personally.
Yep, you personally, yep.
And it's just gonna go around the class again and
No, this time you're gonna have to own it.
we're just right.
I try to save you all embarrassment when I can, but
I just didn't know if I needed to flip a fresh page.
no, you're not gonna have to distribute this around the room. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, Asia.
What do you mean by social status? Like, social media?
No, I mean like your social class status, right? So like, you know, if like getting ahead in society didn't matter, right? Like your basic like social standing.
Like there were no social classes.
Yeah, if there were no social classes, yeah.
Okay.
Like there was no rich or poor or anything like
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it, Chris.
What you saying,
that.
Chris?
Like there's no rich or poor or anything like that. There's no like classes.
2 more minutes. Okay. So let's just go around the room this time. Brandon, do you mind starting?
I said I would keep my same major. I'm a computer science major.
Okay.
I've always been obsessed with technology and engineering since I was a kid. Even if we all got paid the same and there was no social status, I would still be doing something of interest to me and something that I want to learn and get better at. And there's always something new to learn in tech because we have yet to touch the surface of possibilities.
All right, cool, interesting. So you feel like you really are in the right major for you. It sounds like you probably are. Yeah, Ron.
I put that I would also either still be in computer science or I would be studying music because I'm interested in both of those.
Okay. Have you thought about ways you might combine the two interests?
I have, but
You know, you might want to talk to Mark Laughlin in the music department if you haven't. I think that they do some courses in things like electronic music and things like that that might, help combine an interest in programming with an interest in music. James, what about you?
Well, I'm actually technically still a high school student.
That's true. That's true.
I don't have a major yet.
Yeah, but the question still applies. If money and status were no objects.
I think I would study singing and music.
Okay.
I would like to be an opera singer in a different reality. I've been in a choir since the age of 9. And I think I would really enjoy that. Or maybe something else with music, like, I don't know, being in an orchestra or something.
Okay. Cool. Haley, what about you?
So mine, I would still stick with nursing because my goal was to either be an MD or an ME.
Okay.
And that's been my dream since I was 6 years old, helping my dad crack open the chest of ducks, geese, different animals like that we'd hunt that I grew up with, that after we cleaned them and all that stuff, he would give me the carcass to be able to look at the anatomy of it, and I just grew up loving anatomy.
Okay, so you were just fascinated by like putting living things back together.
And then I grew up with my aunt and my nana were PAs, one of family medicine, one of the ICU, and my dad did military medicine. So I just grew up around all of that and fell in love with it at a young age.
Now, when you were putting these animal carcasses back together, you weren't like zapping them with electricity or anything for you to try to make them walk.
He would clean off, because you take the breast meat off, the waterfowl and that stuff, and then he would let me have the body to like crack open the chest and look at
Okay.
the organs and that stuff. We'd reinflate like lungs if they weren't punctured from the gunshot and stuff like that.
Okay. Sydney.
I said, as of right now, I'm a nursing major, and I'm happy about that because I enjoy that type of work. But if I could do something else, I would study law or become a lawyer.
Okay.
I feel that I am very good with proving something and providing evidence to show that. I love puzzles and mysteries. I find law and everything that makes it up very interesting. I would also love to, along with being a lawyer, study the mind, learn why people do what they do in relation to law, study why or what caused someone to commit this crime or do this.
Mhm.
I always feel like there's a deeper meaning to everything, and I find it interesting to learn what it is and why.
Okay, well, what you might actually want to think about, and I'm not trying to tell people to, go change your major, right away, right? What you might actually want to consider doing, you might want to do a poli-sci degree with a psych minor or a soc minor.
That top one you said about political science.
Political science, yeah.
I've been on the fence ever since I chose it, so I still don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I love nursing and everything,
Sure.
like, cool, none of that,
Mhm.
like, what she said, I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
love to do that. That kind of stuff
Uh-huh.
doesn't bother me, and helping people, but I
Yeah.
don't know, I've just always,
Yeah.
and everybody tells me I'm good at arguing, so I feel
Yeah. And there's also, there's more than one way to help people, right? And I think that one of the things that I'm kind of trying to get at here is like with this list of, goals and categories we came up with, right? A lot of them are kind of focused on the fact that education is a risky bet, right? That there are some majors that seem like safer bets than others. Nursing and education, for example, tend to be popular in part because they seem like safe bets, right? They're, we have a national shortage of nurses, right? It's usually fairly easy for teachers to get a job, right? And we can easily envision the job that's at the other end for someone who majors in one of those things. Certain other majors, like things in the humanities, it's often harder to see what kind of job that translates to, right? But often, like really all that takes is sitting down with somebody who works in that discipline who can kind of go through potential options with you, right? Asia, what about you?
I said nursing
Okay.
because, they seem my family.
Uh-huh.
We've been doing everything in my career since.
Okay, so this is part of a family tradition for you, right? It's your family are nurses? Okay. What about you, Young?
I said I would still play soccer
Okay.
because I didn't stop playing for 9 years. So I always enjoyed playing soccer.
Okay.
He's gonna go professional.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? You are the last holdout here.
I put that I do like ranching stuff, like the history of it, practices, things like that.
Okay. So you would do something like an ag science
Yeah.
or ag history kind
Yeah.
of. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that'd be probably what you put it in.
And just to show that we're all in various ways a little bit dissatisfied with the choices we've made, right? If I had it to do over again, I would probably want to be a city planner.
What is that
Yeah,
exactly?
that's what I was.
So a city planner is someone who works with a municipal government to do things like decide where to build parks, where do we put in sidewalks, what can we build in various places
Neighborhoods,
given the
apartments,
zoning
things
laws.
like that.
Pardon?
Neighborhoods and apartments, things like that.
Things like that, and also retail sectors, and I think
Grocery store sectors. things like
yeah, I think the things I would be most interested in doing.
that. School zones and stuff.
Yeah. I think the things I would be most interested in doing were like creating more mixed-use neighborhoods where there's more kind of like retail and housing mixed.
Where everything's more convenient.
Yeah, make things more convenient, more walkable, and more parks, more green space in cities. That would be the kind of thing that would really kind of motivate me. Like that, or maybe I'd like to own a record store.
Like a classic, like, antique record store.
Well, yeah.
No.
Yeah, there's no market for CDs anymore now that you can stream everything.
No.
In fact, I don't think I even own any CDs anymore. I think I gave them all away.
Maybe one day they'll be like records. CDs will.
Maybe, yeah. The people have tried, but like I think that CDs are seen as a lot more disposable.
Yeah, that's true.
For one thing, they are actually less durable than LPs are. Like even with like an LP with a scratch, you can still play it. CD with a scratch, not so much.
No, it just either stops
Yeah,
or continues on
just
the
gonna
same
skip.
spot.
Yeah. But yeah, the basic, again, like the basic point that I'm trying to make here, right, is that I think like we often kind of try to pigeonhole ourselves into what we think we ought to be doing or what, social pressures or financial pressures encourage us to do, right? And I want you all to just think really hard about what it is you really want to do, whether you're actually doing that, and if there is something else you want to do, okay, how would I study that, right? All right, so that's about all I have for you today. We're going to be reading Confucius next time. And you don't need, I guess give those to me, and if somebody needs theirs back, we'll go through it together and I'll figure out what's what. Yes, James.
Confucius in class as well. Are we going to read Confucius in class?
We're going to be talking about it. Like, the idea is for you to read it out of class, and then we'll talk about it in class. Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
So I saw this morning when I was looking at